Greetings. I trust you're doing well, you're keeping safe, and most importantly, you're in good health. Now, picture this. After many years of disappointments, heartbreaks, and letdowns, girl finally meets boy, and boy checks all the right boxes of girl's ideal Mr. Right. Things move very fast, love is in the air, and before girl knows it, boy proposes. Girl says yes, and not too long after the proposal, a big wedding happens, and their happily ever after begins. Now, unfortunately, 3 years and two children down the line, the couple decides to go their separate ways. This might not be my story or your story, but nonetheless is a story that we both can relate to. The big question is, what happens to the children in this particular scenario? Do they have legal rights? And what exactly are the legal responsibilities and duties of parents in such scenario? To get answers to this and much more, I am your host Kusienya. Our sign language interpreter is Rispa Gishohi, and you are watching Access to Justice, a show that aims to enlighten, educate, and inform you on your legal rights, the legal processes, and everything that pertains the law. Keep it right here and do not move an inch. Now, to help me continue with this conversation further is our guest on the show today, our legal expert, Bwana Wakili. Kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me on the show once again. My name is Silas Ombati, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and managing partner, SED Legal LLP.
Okay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, we noticed that there has been, for quite some years, there has been a trend of some partners in marriage institutions not stepping up to responsibilities.
Yeah.
And this brings up the question of parental responsibility, like that scenario I've talked about.
Yes.
What exactly is parental responsibility?
Well, parental responsibilities are I would say, the duties or the obligations or the rights that parents owe to the children.
Okay.
Yes, and these are responsibilities that I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go on, but in a nutshell, that is what we'll describe or term as parental responsibilities.
Okay.
Yes.
And now, like in that scenario I've painted over in our introduction,
Yeah.
what happens in this scenario where couples anticipated that they will have a happily ever after, but unfortunately things do not work out? Who should have what responsibility when it comes to these parents?
Well, parental responsibility is, first of all, is anchored under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. That I think Article 53, if I'm not wrong, that is why it provides for parental responsibilities. And it is the duty of both parents to take up these duties, the obligations, the rights that accrue to a child.
Okay.
Yes, so it is something that is jointly shared by both parents. But what the courts normally do, not just the courts, even say private public institutions who are faced with a scenario where they have to see who parental responsibility can accrue to, they take the best interest of the child.
Okay.
That is the most paramount importance.
And when you say the best interest of the child, what exactly does that mean to a lay person?
Yes, by best interest I mean that the child has responsibilities that under the parental responsibilities, there are those rights that accrue to a child.
Okay.
And these rights is what we term as the best interest of the child that normally taken into consideration, and these include maintenance of the child. By maintenance I mean shelter, food, clothing, medical care, protecting the child against abuse, discrimination, those sorts of things.
Okay.
So yeah, that is what we'll basically term as best interest of the child.
Okay.
Yes.
And this brings me to the question of custody.
Yeah.
We hear the word custody, especially within the court corridors when it comes to children matters. First of all, what is custody, and who should be having the custody of the children?
Custody will put it this way: it's care, like who has the care, or rather, who the child has possession, for instance, because by possession, which I'm sure we'll talk about more of it. Yes, the courts normally look at where, as I said earlier, the benefit of the child, who do they lie with when now it comes to issue of custody, whether it's the father, the mother, a guardian, or foster care, such kind of things. Yes, so custody basically you would say is who has the possession, actual or legal, of the child.
Okay.
Yes.
When you say actual or legal, does it mean that we have different types of custody?
Yes. Yeah, there are different types of custody. By actual custody, that means you have the possession, the actual possession, of the kid, like they're with you. But for the legal custody, that one can only be granted through a custody order.
Okay.
Which has to be granted by the court.
Okay.
So as opposed to actual custody, where when you have the possession of the kid with you, the legal, if you want to have a legal custody, you have to apply to the court. Then the court will look at, assess, and grant a custody order, and now you become the custodian of the kid.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. And before you even delve further into this subject, someone listening to this and they may be going through the same scenario, maybe one partner decided to opt out and run away from responsibility. How then do they start to initiate this process of getting that person to be responsible and provide for the child?
Well, as you clearly stated when you started the show, you know, when people meet, they know that's going to be happily ever after. But things happen along the way, foreseeable and foreseeable.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, the child will get caught up in the midst of all this. So normally, if you are either married, separated, or couples are not living together, for instance, one of them, as you say, absconds their duties and responsibilities that's supposed to provide for the kid and all that, the party that feels aggrieved can approach court and seek for maintenance, or rather sue the party that is defaulting for maintenance of the kid.
Okay.
Yes. So
let me ask you something, okay? Most times people will be told that you can go to court, you can approach it, but normally the main question is how do you approach court? Because not every person has the knowledge and capability to approach court. So someone, for instance, let's say someone who cannot afford the legal fees or afford a lawyer, is there an option for them to approach court in a particular way?
Yeah, actually, it's good that you brought that up, because I should have mentioned that first before I come to the court case.
Yes.
Or the court, someone wants to institute court proceedings. There are children officers.
Okay.
That is normally the first stop.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I believe every county, like in Nairobi, we have a couple of them.
Yes.
So what you do, and nowadays we have at least the beauty of the internet, you perhaps just go and type children's, or search a children's department or children's offices. So now what happens is that you can go make a case to your nearest children's office or department, and they will pick it up. The party, the husband or wife, can be summoned to come and try see whether you can be able to resolve the issues amicably at that stage.
Okay.
Yes. So in the event that parties are unable to agree or abide by or rather what they took them to the children's department, that is when one can now instigate court process. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And back to parental responsibility. Are there different scenarios for parental responsibility? For instance, let's say, suppose people got a child or children before they were married, or after marriage, or is there such a thing, and what happens in such case? Yeah, there are different scenarios when it comes to parental responsibility. For instance, you know, there are those a couple who were married as at the time when the kid was born. So for such a case, that responsibility is shared jointly by both parents. The other scenario would be where
a couple was they were not married, but they became married in due course.
Okay.
Same thing. They will share that responsibility jointly. Now, what normally becomes an issue is where now the parties were not married and never married in the long run.
But
yes, they have a child.
Yes.
A child is involved in the picture. So for such a case, if the father, for instance,
yes,
agreed or like took up the
responsibility
as a father to the kid, then that parental responsibility is shared jointly by both the parents.
Okay.
Yes.
And in the event that in the last scenario you stated, the father did not take responsibility.
Yes.
And they were never married.
Yes.
How then does this say, for instance, the mother gets to hold the father accountable legally and get him to honor?
Well, there's also the issue of cohabiting as well. If the parties to that union, you are not married, as at the time the kid was born, you still are not married, but you stay together for 12 months, let's call it a year, and then automatically the dad takes up the responsibility. By the event that, we have people who dispute
yes.
that, no, we were never married, we are not married up to date, I do not know this kid to be mine, then that is why you hear someone go for a DNA test.
Okay.
To be able to prove paternity, and then now from there they carry ahead with the process.
Okay. There are always conversations about, especially among lay people, that in case someone decides to take me to court as a father to become responsible or to provide, I can always say that I don't have that much money, or I lost my job, so there's no way they can be able to pin me down and force me to provide. What does the law say about that?
Well, that's a good one, because at the end of the day, notwithstanding the fact that you do not have a job, you are not well off, if the kid is involved in the picture, that's why I told you from the beginning, courts look at the best interest of the child. Yes, and in doing so, when a court is, for instance, someone comes to court, they file a suit for maintenance, now bringing your case into play.
Yes.
The other party says they're unable to do that. There are conditions that the court take into consideration.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, despite the fact that you are unable to provide, or you are not a person of means, but the fact that you are the father to this kid, or the parent, not just the father, you are parent to this kid.
Yes.
By a parent, you mean, there's different categories you can put them.
Yes.
Because parent could involve the father, the mother, it could be the guardian, it could be foster care, but when you took up the responsibility, you are supposed to provide for the kid.
Okay.
So the court takes some consideration before they give the maintenance, or rather put some amount to it. Okay. Because basically what the law normally says, courts can either say that you pay a lump sum amount or periodic payments. Okay. So there's no way you'll be left off the hook because you're unable to. So at times the court will look at the financial capability. They would look at the needs of the kid. They would look at how the society that they were brought up in, again, the best interest of the child, if they're suffering from any underlying ailments or medical conditions. So these are the things that the court takes into consideration when they're going to award, let's say, a maintenance. Okay. This is the order that we pay so and so.
Okay. So it's safe to say that there's no two way about it. If you're a parent, whether you're working or you're not working, you still have to be responsible and provide and care for the.
Precisely, that is the point.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whether you are working or not. Whatever little it is that you get, then that's supposed to go towards, and that's why you find when cases are filed in court, depending on now the I can call it the financial muscle
Yes.
of the other party.
Yes.
That's why you find the court awarding from as less as 5,000 shillings to as
Oh.
more as 100,000.
Oh, okay.
Yes, as maintenance. Yeah, so it varies from case to case. It's on a case to case basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wakili, I want us to look at the things that the court consider before the grant custody. Things that the court considers before granting custody to a parent. And Wakili, what are some of these things?
Well, I know I've said this much, but we always we have to keep saying this.
Yes.
Best interest of the child.
Okay.
That appears everywhere.
Okay.
Be it custody, be it maintenance.
Okay.
That cuts across the board.
That's the number one.
That's the number one
priority that the court
looks at.
Okay.
The best interest of the child.
Okay.
And over and above that, when someone makes an application for the custody of a child, the court would look, for instance, at the wishes of the parents. If they're there, the father, the mother, or the guardian. They will also look at the surrounding of the kid, the customs, the traditions.
Okay.
Yeah, they will also look at if they have siblings, other siblings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what impact will the same have
on the child?
Yes, on this child.
Okay.
Yeah, amongst many other things.
Okay. So what I get is that whatever differences or issues that the parents to a child have do not play any part when it comes to the court deciding to grant custody.
No. We can look at it from this angle. There are those children who parents are alive, but they, due to unavoidable circumstances or because of the living condition and all that, or we can take it for instance the relatives. There are those children who are brought up by their relatives. Yes. So such kind of things are what coming back to your question. That doesn't necessarily affect the fact that the parents are there or not. Okay.
And also in terms of I was meaning in terms of most times when parents or couples go their separate ways, it's not on good terms.
Yes.
There's always a lot of negative energy and bad blood.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's unfortunate, but you'll see some parents using the child or the children as a bargaining chip to get back to the other parent.
Okay.
And I think that should also come out clearly. People need to understand that the court do not.
Yes, I get. No, the child at times has to be called and asked questions or two. Yes, but the court has to hear the child out. As you say, most of the times the couples are separated, but one couple wants custody over the other couple.
Okay.
So basically, at times the court would call upon the kid depending on their age and their maturity level, because children are, as definitions under our law, a child is a person under the age of 18 years.
Very true.
So of course we have a difference between the child and children of tender years.
Yes. Actually, speaking of that one, there's always that question of the law that applies to children of tender years is not the same as children who are under 18 years. Could you just bring that out clearly?
Yes. As I was saying, there are definitions of a child and then the definition of the child or children under of tender years.
Yes.
A child is someone under the age of 18 years.
Yes.
Of course, there's this debate that we should lower the age
to 16
and all that. For sexual offences and all that, but that's a story for another day. But for a child of tender years, that is someone who is below 10 years and below. So for this person of tender years, it's presumed that they haven't like grown their capabilities. They're too young that we tend to treat them as with a lot of tenderness, so to say, and care. Yes, as opposed to someone who's over the age of 10 years. Okay.
And now the child who is of tender years, is it automatically that they have to go to a particular parent, or what happens in that scenario?
Well, for children of tender years, normally it's not written in our laws,
Yes.
but how practices has come over the years. By this I mean case law,
Yes.
how it's been decided, and you know that forms part of the laws of our system.
Yes.
So over the years, from way back before we had the Constitution, or the 2010 Constitution, and the Children's Act of 2001, the courts have always been inclined to give custody for the mother. That is of a child of tender years. And more so when it applies to girls. Yes, because they deem that the mom will take good care of them as opposed to the father. But of course, there are exceptions to that general rule.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting because now it brings me to the whole issue of maintenance. And most times people are confused whether maintenance should be provided for the child or does it include the mom?
This maintenance normally applies to the child.
Actually, what's maintenance? Let's start from there.
Yes.
For people who don't know what maintenance is.
Yeah. Maintenance includes, if you have a child, this includes, this child has the right to education. They have a right to shelter. They have a right to adequate medical facility.
Yes.
The right to food and all that, clothing.
Yes.
So this is what I will term as maintenance. So when someone makes an application to court for the other party to maintain the kid,
Yes.
basically this is what they ask in the court to do.
Okay.
Yes, that this person has to provide for the kid. Yes, and providing for the kid now includes all the things I mentioned about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, back to the question I was bringing up. There has been scenarios, and I'm sure you've come across this, whereby a mother to a child will say, for you as a father to come and see the child, first of all, you need to provide.
Yeah.
And when we talk of provision, she's referring to the roof, the food, clothing, and medical care. But now, let's focus on the roof.
Yeah.
That roof she also stays there.
Yes.
And now she brings up the issue of you have to pay rent.
Yeah.
Because where do you expect your child to stay? You know,
Yeah.
he does not live in a bush or in a cave.
Yeah.
So how does that play out when it comes to how the law sees it?
Yeah, that's true. That happens a lot. As I rightly pointed out from the very beginning,
Yes.
that maintenance of a child, parental responsibility,
Yes.
is a joint. If the father and the mother, in the case like you're putting across,
Yes.
they are both alive, then they are supposed to jointly take care of the kid.
Okay.
Yes, and when it comes to now the issue saying that someone ought to pay for rent for the kid,
Yes.
you might find one party is well-to-do, or rather they have a good job as opposed to the other party. So there's no way you can compel someone to pay a housing,
Yes.
or for instance, 30,000, 40,000,
Yes.
and they live in a 5,000 house. So
True.
What normally happens when someone is seeking for this sort of a maintenance order, a party normally file, like you have to come up with what you call an affidavit of means.
Yes.
By affidavit of means in this instance, it means you need to clearly detail what you know. For instance, this person, this is how much they
make,
this is how much they
this
make.
is their
This
businesses.
is the businesses, yes.
Income.
So when the court, because you cannot tell someone to provide fees for a private school and they're able to do that,
Yeah.
and they can do for a public or a group of schools and all that. So these are some of the things that courts normally take into consideration.
Okay.
Yes, as I said, the financial capability, finances, how this person, what they're making and all that. Yes, court takes into consideration all those.
Okay. And are there things maybe that the court considers before it determines who should be awarded maintenance, or for instance now in scenarios where people were not cohabiting or were never married,
It all boils down to now if the different ways of going about it. There's where parties can be separated.
Yes.
They can be divorced. And when that happens, the issue of maintenance, that is something that is supposed to be granted to either of the party.
Okay.
So court of course takes into consideration a lot, and this includes the behavior, or how the other party they conduct themselves in terms of how previously how have you been supporting this kid,
Yes.
for how long, the length of period that you've been doing that. So it's a lot that the court also takes into consideration.
Okay.
Because they would want to see that despite you've come to court, you filed, you want this person to maintain this grade. When have they been doing it? Have they been doing it? When did they stop?
Yes.
Or if they've been doing it, for how long have they been doing it? So it's a lot that the court takes into consideration.
Which actually brings me to this question. I know there are instances whereby, especially when it comes to a child of tender age, instances whereby the custody might not be granted to the mom.
Yes.
What are some of these instances where the mother is not, the court decides that the mother cannot to custody?
It's these are we picked it up from how the courts have been going about it, including the decisions by the Court of Appeal and the High Court.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, they say that the mother, children of 20 years, the mother takes priority as opposed to the father. But as we say, there are circumstances or there are instances where now the court will find in favor of the father. Among them being that where the mother lives, perhaps it's in deplorable conditions.
Yes.
That perhaps she's not there's sanity. The court would also look at the moral character of the mother. Yes, is she a person who a habitual drunkard, for instance?
Okay.
Yes. So and the friends, the environment. So those are some of the things that the court takes into consideration.
The court considers
one more.
wholesome.
Yes, another one before I forget. The court will also see whether the mother has remarried.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that at times would affect the court's decision to grant the father.
If you may, how does that affect?
Yeah. This we pick from the decisions that the courts have made. It's very interesting because a father would go and make an argument in court that yes, I would wish to get the custody of my kids because the mother has remarried another husband, but on my part, I am not remarrying, but I would want to take care of the kids.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's something as we say in law, courts normally approach every case like on a case-to-case basis. It's not a blanket stone. Yes, that this is. But at times it will form part of the court's decision to grant custody to a father.
Okay.
If the mother remarries,
Oh.
But that is not the only thing they will look at. They will look at holistically now the other issues as well.
Then again, this poses a danger. I'm trying to imagine a scenario where couples have failed to work things out, and probably it's because of the conduct and behavior of the man in that union. So the lady decides to move on, and the man fails to own up, and he allows her to move on.
Yes.
She finds someone who's willing to take up responsibility and be that man. And then the moment this other ex-husband realizes that, then he wants to come back to the picture and claim that another man cannot take care of my child when I'm still able and alive. What happens in this scenario?
Well, as you've put it, now the question that will beg is when the man, for instance, was unable to do that and the lady left.
Yes.
Was it desertion? Was there desertion? And what happened after that? Was there now the process of separation, judicial separation, or there the process of divorce and all that? So when for instance that happens and someone files a case in court, the court would if a court finds someone unfit to hold So legal, as you remember, initially when we started, we spoke about actual custody
Yes,
and legal custody.
Yes.
Yes. So in this instance, someone will be asking for legal custody as the man in this case. But if it was found initially that this man was unfit to have the custody of this kid, then they cannot be able to. They cannot have custody unless they come to court and move the court appropriately for the court to. And this happens, for instance, where even if, let's say, the mother passed on, God forbid, yes.
Okay.
So the court will look at were you found unfit in the first place?
Yes.
So if you're found unfit in the first place, then you cannot later on come back and say that now I am here, I want to do this without an order of the court. Giving you the legal custody.
This brings me to a very interesting question, because most times when we're having discussions about children matters, custody, maintenance, and parental responsibility, sometimes either out of lack of information or ignorance, there are parents who feel like because this person did not own up and take up responsibility as a parent, for instance, let's say as a dad, and the child is of tender age, I want to change the names, the surnames of the child, and probably give them either the surname of the grandfather or something, or a different name, to just make sure that this person does not come back or come and claim legal custody of that child. How does this play out from a legal perspective?
That's an interesting one, because these are things that happen.
Truly.
In real life, they happen. And I actually remember at one point having been faced with a similar scenario where now the mother they got separated with the father, or rather he disappeared, and then some other, they got remarried to some other person. This person was, I cannot do this unless these changes are affected on this kid, or you find the kid doesn't have a birth certificate and they have problems at school because of such a case. These are challenges that we grapple with on a regular. So now the question that was asked is, now what recourse does one have, for instance? At the end of the day, you can never change the fact that someone is a parent, or rather, you can never change paternity of a child. The child, the father will forever remain the father of the child. Yes. So the court looks at all these scenarios, like where has the father been? Did they disappear at some point? But coming to the issue of now change of name, it's a whole procedure under the law of how one can go about the change of names. But at the end of the day, it does not change the fact that these will still remain to be the father of the kid, these will remain to be the mother of the kid, despite the fact that those changes are effected.
Okay.
Yes.
So what you're saying is these changes can be effected, yes, but it does not change the paternity.
It does not. Because someone would want to do, or rather change so that they want to forget. They
past.
They do away with all that. But as I said, there are recourse. If you are legally married, the best way to go about it, go to court, file a petition for divorce and all that. So the court will declare that yes, you are divorced, but does not change the fact that paternity still remains with either of the parties.
So then now there's room for this person whose surname was removed or changed to come back later and claim legal custody.
Well, as I said, if initially it was found that you are unfit, for you to come and claim legal custody, you have to come to court and show the court. Well, you can do that. It is not an automatic right that you will get the legal custody. But you have to come to prove to court that yes, I am the maternal, or rather I'm a parent to this kid. I would wish to get their custody. So you'll be put to task in the first place, and you are found unfit because of so and so. So it is upon it is a word. As I say, the burden of proof lies with the person who alleges. Yes.
Correct.
So you have to come and prove that indeed despite the fact that yes, this happened, but now I am a person of upright,
yes,
I'm able to,
and
I can do that. Yeah, so the court will look at it and see whether legal custody can be granted to you.
Okay, wonderful. Another issue that always comes up in our discussions about children is, and I think personally is most times overlooked, is the rights of a child, especially when it comes to persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
We notice that children with disabilities most times are shunned away, and they want to be hidden and be locked away from the public and every other right that they are entitled to.
Yes.
But I had posed a question to you about this area that is most times ignored when it comes to a discussion regarding children matters, and this is children rights, especially when it comes to children or persons with disabilities. Most children, like I had mentioned, they are shunned away, they are kept away, they are locked away, and it's a very bad picture.
Yes.
But you also have to accept the reality that it happens. What are the rights of children, and what does the public need to know about this?
Well, as regards person living with disability, for sure, as I remember the last time we had this conversation,
Yes.
they have similar or equal rights,
Yes.
same as the rights that all the other persons have.
Yes.
Because our constitution provides for non-discrimination. By virtue of now being disabled,
Yes.
being one of them amongst other issues.
Mm-hmm.
So persons living with disability as well, they have rights, or children living with disability have rights under our laws. They have rights under the Constitution, under the Children Act, which are the conventions
Yes.
on the rights of the child, the African Charter, the rights and welfare of the child. So they are protected, and these are statutes that we ratified, which means we are part of them. So for instance, now a person living with disability, this is a person that they have special needs, for instance, depending on the kind of disability, whether it's mental, it's physical, and all that.
Yeah.
Yes, and the parents have these kids have equal rights, same as any other children.
Yeah.
And for them it's even special, because when they get to 18 years, at times doesn't necessarily mean that they will be okay if they still have, or they're suffering from a mental disability or physical disability. For them, now parental responsibility even goes way beyond. Yes,
18.
goes way beyond the 18 years, because they need special care, special attention, special treatment. So they always have to be provided for over and above the age of 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, when it comes to parents in such scenario, they should know that they can go and pursue little rights for the children, and make sure that the other partner or the other parent, in case they're not in the picture,
Yes.
they can be made
Yes.
responsible,
Yeah.
and also provide and care for such a child.
Yes, that is something that they need to know.
Okay.
Because most people think that when a child attains the age of 18, they go and say that now this is an adult, they can take care of themselves.
Yes.
But as you say, this is someone who needs special care, needs
Yes.
special attention. So for them, if for instance one of the parties decide not to, or rather abandon their responsibility,
Yes.
then the other party can always approach court and sue the other party for maintenance of such a kid.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now that you've mentioned about the 18-year age, does parental responsibility end at 18 years generally?
No. There are special circumstances, or we call them exceptional circumstances,
Yes.
where parental responsibility stretches beyond the 18-year age.
Yes.
And one of them being, now we talked about disability, mental, physical. The others would be where education is involved, or a child needs to go to the university, a college, a tertiary institution, and these are the parties that don't want to pay for that. Then you can always file for maintenance, where you need medical attention,
Yes.
for instance, and you are still not in a position to. So you can always, or someone is suffering from an ailment, or they have an underlying condition with them, you can always move the court in the event that a party stops to. So those are the exceptional circumstances that we normally have with regards parental responsibility over and above the age of 18 years.
Okay. Another thing that I want to ask that it's about a child who's being, a person who's above 18 years. A scenario whereby a parent stops paying school fees for someone who's above 18 years.
Yeah.
Can they hold a parent responsible legally to continue paying school fees for them? Or
yes. Actually, it's a good one you brought up, because when you get to that 18 years, doesn't necessarily mean that now education stops at that age. So now the question that begs is, who can go to court and sue the party to continue providing for them?
yes.
So this can be done by either parent,
Okay.
a guardian, someone who was the custodian of the custodian, you know what I called you, told you about that,
Yes.
and the child themselves, they can do that.
Okay.
Because you see, now they are no longer termed as children. They become
Correct.
adults.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So they can file to be further for the courts to grant an order that such and such money continues to be paid in education until they finish. Yes, they finish their work.
Okay. Now, this is just your personal opinion. We've noticed, I don't know whether it's because of COVID-19 or it has always been there, but there has been a lot of family breakups, because of a lot of unresolved family issues.
Yeah.
In these scenarios, in your own opinion, do you think, especially in young marriages actually,
Yes.
do you think people need to have a sit down and probably end things amicably? Is there a way that can happen? Or because most times it's always dramatic, chaotic, a lot of bitterness.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, especially when children are involved, they're the ones who suffer most.
Yes.
So do you think there's a way that maybe people can sit down and agree and say, look, however way we look at it, however much mad we can be at each other,
Yes.
it's not working. But then again, how do we protect the children in this union?
Well, yeah, that's a good one, because it's something that is happening. And as we say, during COVID period, we tend to have seen a lot of these cases coming up. And as we've actually said, at the end of the day, the interest of the child have to be protected and prioritized. People tend to have, when they break up, they tend to be nasty, chaotic, which does not have to be the case. The law provides for a parental responsibility agreement.
Yes.
That is anchored under, it's anchored for in the law.
Okay.
Where now we can sit down as the couples or the parents with the kid and say, okay, so we are unable to, we cannot no longer be together, we want to part ways. So how do we go about this?
Yes.
We have a parental responsibility agreement, and in this agreement we detail how we are going to split the bills, who is going to take care of what, and who is going to take care of what. I think this is now what the American have as the prenup there, where you have an agreement in the event that this happens. This is how this is going to happen.
Okay.
So in Kenya we have it, but now it's called the Parental Responsibility Agreement. PRA, yes, which now we can always, the same can be done even before the children's office. You don't have to go all the way to courts.
Yeah. Or someone can go to the children's office and
request for it. And request that can we have a parental PRA? Okay. Yes, and in the event that one of the parties doesn't abide, or at some point they decide to do away with that, then one always has recourse, which now are the courts of law.
Okay. Yes. And in an event that couples decide to have a PRA,
yes,
do they need a lawyer to do that, or they can just do it by themselves?
Well, if at the end of the day, it is all about settling or having an amicable solution, as they're putting it, without having to go all the legal drama way. You can have this agreement with you, a gentleman's agreement, so to say. If you have, you can sit down and understand between yourselves. You can sit and have this agreement that yes, this is what I'll be that they're doing. But at times, people say to have it, or rather give it some backing, or for it to have
some legal basis,
yes, yeah.
I'm asking that because most times, we encounter these issues in our field,
Yes.
whereby today people might agree that in the event that we fall out, then this is what we'll do. But then that only lasts until one party learns that after we fell out, another person came in the picture of that person, and then it becomes an issue of I cannot do this. You already have a person who can do this, I mean, why should I provide where there's another man in the picture, or there's another woman in the picture? What would be advice in such scenario?
Well, these are real life situations.
Yes.
These are things that happen where the other party will say, okay, why am I being compared? Why do I have to hold this end of the bargain? And there's someone else who's come in the picture.
Yes.
So as we normally put it in law, if at that point in time, who is the kid with?
Yes.
That is one of the things that we normally look at, like who was the custody
of the
child, and the person that has the custody, and this other party came in. If you start taking responsibility of this kid, then it is presumed that you have taken a parental responsibility as pertains the child.
Yes.
But this does not in any way stop the parents, or the paternal parents of the kid, from doing their end of the bargain.
Yes.
Or taken care of. So now the issues that now come in, and I think now we'll go back to where we started from.
Yes.
If this party decides, okay, I am moving on to another party and I to be with another person. If the union was if the marriage was unionized, and what process becomes clear, we have to dissolve this marriage. Yes. And if the marriage is dissolved, then these are the parties at liberty to now get into it, take care of this kid, but does not in any way prevent the paternal father from doing it. But these are issues and the challenges that I will grapple with, because yes, I totally understand and get what you say. The other party will say, why am I? This person has someone else.
Yes.
They are living together. Then let them take care of
that child, exactly.
Yes.
Because they're playing my role.
Yes, because they're playing my role. But it doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, as I rightly indicated to you, these parties were married, then they got divorced. Parental responsibility has to be shared.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Just to digress a bit before we wind up. Now that you're having the budget conversations in the country, and we know how deep in debt as a country we are, what are your expectations and what do you hope for going forward regarding the budget?
Well, as you say, Kenyans right now they're all up in arms. You should remember the last time the petition that was being signed to the IMF, stop lending to Kenyans.
Yes.
So it's true that we are deeply in debt, and one of the things that looking at the current situation, COVID and all that, that we're looking at, if you remember the last time there were tax reprieves that were given to at least help people also manage. So these are the things that I'm sure Kenyans want to hear, because I know for sure the budget that is going to be read will be over and above what was previously read. So as Kenyans, we would like to know, are there tax incentives or incentives that have been given to them? How will the common mwananchi, we don't want to just hear the increase in taxes that we have, we want to hear, okay, so what is the government going to do to assist those people who low income, middle income, and such kinds of people.
Okay.
So we hope CS Yatani would be alive to issues such as that.
Okay.
Yes.
Wakili, before we wrap up the show, having discussed these subjects on children, parental responsibility and maintenance, what would be your advice to parents and will-be parents when it comes to this particular subject? What do they need to know? Because as much as most times when we get into unions, we do not anticipate that things may fall apart. But sometimes we fall out and we cannot help it because of circumstances beyond our control. What should people know?
Well, Kenyans need to know that the child doesn't need to be caught up in the event that a union is broken, or that the parents are split and all that, because at the end of the day, this child, his interests will be catered for, whether legally or otherwise. So parents need to know that they have the children have rights under the Constitution, under the Children's Act, that there are responsibilities that pertains to the parents. They actually also need to know that as I rightly mentioned, a party this extends beyond the 18 years. Those are some of the take-home things that parents need to know. When it comes to custody, they need to know about who can apply for custody, what the courts take into consideration when it comes to maintenance. And that is not an absolute right that the mother always has the custody of the child. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Okili, for creating time and gracing our show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, as you have heard it, that has been our conversation about child custody, parental responsibility, and maintenance. In case you still have any questions, comments, or views, please make sure you share with us on our social media platforms, and we can always share with our guests and get back to you regarding any question or concern about this particular subject. I've been your host, Caleb Kusienya. Our sign language interpreter has been Rispa Gishohi, and our guest has been Silas Ombati, an advocate of the High Court. Like every other good thing, and we have to come to an end of the show, but looking forward to interact with you next week, same time, same place. Be safe, take care.